Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Improv Network podcast. This is a series of conversations aimed at building stronger connections throughout the improv community. I'm James Quesada, your education director for the Improv Network. You can go to the improvnetwork.org and check out all sorts of resources on there. There are festival listings, virtual festivals. There's blogs and interviews. There's an improv FAQ page that has an archive of all of these streams and conversations, as well as a mini lecture series by yours truly, a little bit shorter, 10, 15-minute long videos on concentrated on improv topics and frequently asked questions of improv. All right. Well, just a quick update, I guess I'll throw out there just to kind of settle in is I went to my first jam since coming back to the pandemic, and that was really exciting. I went to that on Friday at the People's Improv Theater and had a really great time. And I don't know, of course, there's the worry of the Delta variant and everything coming back, but it was nice to squeeze in seeing a live show at Magnet on Friday and then going to a jam afterward at the Pit Loft and getting back to some of the friends that I missed so much and seeing each other on stage. Which is really great. I hope people are getting the opportunity to do that. I hope people are doing it safely. Both theaters were asking for vaccination cards, and just a photo would do it. So I think that's a good way to go about it. And yeah, it just was it was really great, and wanted to share that with everybody. I'm very excited to have our guest on for this episode. We will be missing Bob today for a family event, but our guest is the newest board member of the Improv Network, and he is also a longtime improviser, teacher, director. He is the founder and artistic director of Moment Improv Theater out in San Francisco. I'm very excited to introduce Marcus Sams. Marcus.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Thanks for doing it, man.
Absolutely. I am doing well.
Cool.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad.
Yeah.
So real quick, just as a really brief setup for, because we wanted to talk as our topic about tech, because that's a really strong arm of yours. Obviously, you have a really great setup there. And Moment Improv does all sorts of really great things in the virtual space for classes and shows. But also, since you're joining the board for the Improv Network, we just wanted to get to know you a little bit. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your background in improv.
Yeah. I'm gonna sit for this because we're just chatting here.
Yeah, it's just a chat.
It's just a chat. Let's see. So specifically, is there any direction you'd like me to start? Like when I was a small minnow.
Yeah. Like, well, people always said like I had a funny bone growing up. Well, I guess I'm most curious about, Moment Improv. Take us up to like how did you end up, founding a theater and building your own thing in San Fran?
Yeah. So let's see. So then I guess, not to go too far back to Minnowland. Yeah.
Sure.
Started improv in college, didn't really fully grasp the scope of what improv could be. We were doing a lot of short form Whose Line Is It Anyways games. Then I moved to San Francisco. For all intents and purposes, moved to San Francisco. Haven't ever lived in the city, just done a lot of work out of the city.
Gotcha.
And then the first improv group that theater that I joined was Leela. And I had a wonderful teacher by the name of Jill Eichmann, and went through a 1-year training with them. And then after that, did a little bit more work with them. They took a hiatus for a bit. I jumped into a group called We Be Negroes, run by Sean Landry.
Cool.
I worked with them for quite a bit for a few years. I taught at In Games Improv. When Leela came back, I ended up teaching for them, running some jams. And over that time, like, there's just like this clawing happening inside of me that was saying, you have to do this full time. This is where your heart is. You love this. Do it. And while that whole thing was happening, I still am a working actor. So I've got the whole agent action here in San Francisco.
Very cool.
But I was also working like IT. When I first came to San Francisco, I was substitute teaching for the Albany, Emeryville, and Berkeley school districts. So I was just juggling substitute teaching jobs. But
sorry, so, and teaching in tech?
No, so I was teaching children in at schools K through 12.
Yeah. Okay.
And then I got this crazy tech job through the improv community, actually.
Okay.
That was fun, but I had to have a hard talk with myself of, do I want to continue to work to fix lawyers' word macro issues and play that whole game? Or do I want to help fix people?
Yeah.
And improv is life-changing. And I know that it's definitely changed my life. And through teaching, after seeing how many positive changes were happening for those around, I'm like, okay, I'm all in. So I decided that I wanted to teach my own classes also. So I started teaching some one-offs. They were 4-hour improv intensives into different subjects of improv. So like I had a 4-hour intensive on just space object work, which was actually the first class I ever taught, was space objects. I'd like to say that's what got me into teaching. Someone asked me, how do you do the space object work that you do? And I'm like, I don't know. And then I went home and I started writing about it. I'm like, oh, I guess I have a process. Okay. So then I started teaching some of my processes.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think object work, space work, physicality, I think that's one of my favorites as well. And not necessarily how I started teaching, but something that was sort of my MO as well. And just like definitely something that's very exciting and valuable to work with people on. Okay, so and you started, so you did these intensives on things like, and that's kind of how like you built your own philosophy from there. You started to kind of like uncover your own general take and theory on things.
Yeah, when I was working with We Be Negroes, it put me in this incredible place where all of a sudden I got to take workshops from all these master teachers. Sean Landry ran the improv festival at the time. And so through there, I was able to take master classes with like David Rosowski, Karen Wright, Asaf Ronan, Joe, Bill, and Mark Sutton, name drop. Drop the bombs. And I just took a bunch of notes. And to this day, what? They're this close? Boom. I've got like...
Well, I happen to have them on hand.
Yeah. Well, because, you should see my wall. I've got like nothing but improv posters. My closet is a bunch of improv shirts.
That's awesome. Improv cave.
I'm in deep. Yeah. So I took a bunch of notes and then I just like kind of processed those notes and just brought them in. And then I married that with my theater background because I have an acting degree from Chico State. And then I also, in a weird sort of way, combined it with my IT brain. I love breaking things down to the smallest unit and like, okay, this is a tool. And so a lot of the teaching that I do is I like to say it's tool-based. So one of the cornerstones. Oh, you froze. James, are you here? Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
But I'm frozen. I gotcha. I should have said something earlier because I was like waiting for my screen to come back. And not realizing that, like, well, maybe the audio's fine too.
You're like,
yeah. I was like, oh. Yes, I can still hear you, and I'm still here. So,
continue.
yeah, go right ahead. Breaking things down to the smallest parts.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's great. You just did that whole thing where you're like moving really fast to catch up. So like in a sprint, we were racing. You fell behind for a little bit, but you just caught up, buddy.
Good. Yeah, I feel like I've done a little time travel in my. I'm chrono aligning.
So what I was saying was one of the cornerstones for moment training is something that I call the moment of change. And the moment of change came out of doing some exercises that were kind of Meisner exercises, but then twisted around a bit.
Okay.
So like it's funny because the first time that I introduced someone to this exercise, I call it Meisner walk it out nope scenes. And the idea is that you've got two improvisers on either side of the stage. They start walking towards each other and they just notice what they notice. And once one of them notices something, they call it out, making a declarative statement. You are this state. And then they repeat that back and forth, back and forth, back and forth until one of them no longer feels that that is true. And then that person yells out, nope, and walks away. They just bail.
That's funny.
And the whole idea is to viscerally get this feeling. So like when the moment of change happens, you notice it.
Yeah, that's great. So if you can still hear me.
Yeah.
Great. Well, at least we have that. I love that. I think that to me, I've been wanting to do an episode for a while on improvising without a suggestion, and eventually we'll get to it. But to kind of like tap into what you were just talking about as it relates to that, suggestion topic is that I have found a lot of the time that suggestions kind of get in the way. And I was playing in Michigan with a theater that did their like main company did shows with no suggestion as a troupe, or and that was some of my favorite stuff. Lights come up in just you and the first person on stage, and you just like notice the physicality and the proximity and the body language and the nonverbals, and you can build so much out of that. And everything goes in phases for people in improv. I think you get fixated on one thing and then the next. But for me, one of the longest things that I've been like kind of weighing is like, man, are there more opportunities to do that kind of improv that you're talking about, where you don't really focus first on the cerebral or the linguistic aspect of things, and instead just kind of like build from that moment, that like physical, ethereal moment, and see how much is contained in that. I have for a couple of years now found that to be more freeing and more like authentically inspiring than getting a suggestion and trying to come up with a quick like, okay, association or location or whatever. It gets me in my head easier than when I'm just like bare moment on stage, as you're talking about. So I really, really like that. That's very cool.
Yeah. It resonates with me because it resonates with the actor side of me. And what you realize, and like if you're a student and you're watching these scenes, like you're not off the hook either, right? You've got a job to do. Your job is to watch, to be there, right? And what people notice is that when the moment of change happens, you can't deny it. The audience sees it every time. and for me, it asks the question of the improviser: will we be aware and present enough when the moment of change occurs, and will we be brave enough to then take action?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I love that. And again, just I love that exercise too, because and the idea of it being like change, because you can have things change multiple times in a scene, and like you said, not be afraid or in more positive terms, to be brave enough to act on it, even if it's a change to what you feel like was established. It's like, if it's honest and something changed, then act on it. Like, that's real. Like, if you noticed it, chances are everyone else in the room noticed it too.
Well, so the very next step, the evolution of that exercise, because it's got a couple parts to it, is what I call a Meisner walk it out nope scene. And that's where the actors come in, they do the same thing, but instead of saying nope and bailing on the scene, they notice the change and they say, this person was in this state. Now they're in this state. Why would someone shift? And then they use this information to fuel their first line of dialogue, so that their first line of dialogue and the whole scene actually grows out of a non-BS place. It's just like, no, I noticed this thing. This is now the thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so I'm jiving with it. I'm really enjoying what you're saying. I don't want to get too hung up on it for right now, because I'm sure it'll come back into play in later in the conversation.
Sure.
But I really love everything about what you're saying. I guess to kind of like get us one step closer to the conversation of tech, as my video continues to struggle.
It's okay.
Yeah. So when you start Moment Improv, is there a tech aspect to like the staging and the productions you're putting out right away? Because it's what I love about the philosophy that you're putting forward is that it's like very minimalist, and so I'm just like kind of curious, as you incorporate like other production aspects and especially tech that can be like, really great bells and whistles on a stronger foundation of theater. It can also sometimes like take away from the need or the it's kind of tough sometimes to like keep the really essential parts of improv in focus with like more tech elements. So were you incorporating tech and production concepts into shows right away or later on?
So back in college, I did a sketch show that combined pre-recorded video and live sketch, and they blended together.
Very cool.
I brought some of those concepts to a show called Future Style 79 that we did in San Francisco, and this was well before Moment was even a thought. And I've always kind of wanted to get back to doing some fun tech in shows. But, in order to do that, it helps to have your own space, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
right.
when you're renting from multiple venues, you don't have that luxury.
Right,
So I didn't really get back to that. So when the pandemic happened, it was like, oh, well, crap, that happened. Okay, what's next? What's the next thing? Funny enough, like as soon as it happened and we all went on lockdown, I think that I never stopped working. And I'm used to putting 10 to 12-hour days in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I feel you. And there's a bit in your bio that says, your turnaround was like 5 days to between like, the sheltering orders to getting things online. And I think I've been impressed, and I think a lot of people would share the the observation and the feeling of being impressed by like how quickly the improv world adapted, which should not be surprising. But like improv again is a medium that tends to kind of strip things down to minimalist and not rely on tech. In you can do it in a black box or in the park or wherever, and so that's one of the benefits is that you don't really need all the tech. So that's to me when I see like, oh damn, like all these improvisers are now just like putting it up online. It was very cool to see the people whose strengths were in the skill set of tech and web-based tools to then get a chance to like apply that by necessity and start pushing improv into that medium that's so fast.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
kudos to someone like you who did that.
Well, thank you. What's funny is like I knew. So before in the before times,
Yeah,
I like to refer to it as BC times. Let's see. I did not know what OBS was. I had no real need to create a virtual cloud network. I'd never used Adobe After Effects. So all of this stuff was like, okay, wow, time to learn a bunch of new things. And yeah, like I didn't have, like I used to run a film company, but like I abandoned like any equipment. So I didn't have any lights. I didn't have like a really awesome camera, a professional microphone. So it's just like, okay, all right, okay.
Yep. Yeah. That's incredible. I mean, just the amount that you can learn in a short time. I mean, it speaks to your aptitude for it, but it also speaks to how accessible a lot of software is becoming, especially things like the Adobe suite, and like Google's always really great about it, and Apple products are just really more and more capable, powerful at the same time that they're easier to use, which is an interesting correlation for tech to go in. And I don't really know much about OBS, but like you learned that from scratch, and that seems like a very that's like multitasking kind of. Can you describe exactly what OBS is for people who are unfamiliar with it?
Yeah, I mean, OBS is a it stands for, oh boy,
it's something broadcast system. It's
open broadcast system, because it's
okay,
open
cool.
source, right? That
I
makes
don't
sense.
know.
I mean, it wouldn't be Olive or anything.
Opaque broadcast system,
right? It is a robust system. I mean, you can, let's see. I can actually, okay, screen share, tips, boom, and boom. So now in theory, you can see this. So this is OBS right here. Hello, I'm OBS. And you've got your scenes, you've got your sources, and each scene has different sources. And then you can pull in your microphone over here. It's a really powerful software suite. And what I found is towards the beginning, like I didn't want to necessarily do improv that was straight to camera, or necessarily even looking at the screen while doing the improv, because I felt like there was this disconnect that was happening. Mm-hmm. And so then this is when the film background kicked in. Right. And so like everything that I've built, and I'm really super excited because I would say as of last week, like the entire infrastructure is built.
Or would you? Sorry, real quick. Do you want me to keep the OBS viewer up there?
Well, I was going to come back to it. Let's see. I can jump in just to show something really quick. But once you start playing with it, you can like create virtual sets. right? And so here
Yeah,
I'm
awesome.
behind my desk, and actually this is how we would greet people. This is how we would greet the audience and students when they came in to see a show or take a class. And so I wanted to give the community a sense of like, oh yeah, this feels familiar, right?
Yeah.
And you can even go behind the curtain and pop out and say hello. Um, I have built a bunch of other sets. I mean, this is just a simple on stage one that I use for hosting shows. Let's go back to the theater. But yeah, so whenever I build a class, and if you want to switch back, we can. But whenever I build a class, I always do it in reverse. I'm like, okay, what are the goals that I want to accomplish with this class? And then you work backwards, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like in a lot of ways, that's what I did with online improv. I'm like, what is the vision? And my vision was, well, the general audience is used to watching television shows. They're not necessarily used to watching us break the fourth wall all the time.
Right, staring at you, delivering your lines to the audience.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
And so that's when I came up with this concept of the fly technique, and it's literally an approach to doing improv online on a camera, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so in the teleprof classes, and there was so many iterations. And in the beginning, I think that we all had to do a crap ton of experimentation to see what works, what doesn't. In some classes, I've got a class that I literally fly people around in Google Earth, teaching them how to do storytelling based on like just their environment.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So it's fun.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
so
go ahead.
Oh, go for it. Oh, I was just gonna say, so the idea is like, okay, in film and television, the camera moves around the subject, but in this medium, we as actors have to learn how to work around the camera to tell for storytelling, right? So you've got your faux over the camera shot or over the shoulder shot here. And then I've like taped down my lines, so we have sight lines and everything. So once I had that concept, everything else kind of flowed out of that. I was able to write the classes for that approach. So then I felt like Moment had a vision on what we wanted for shows. And then the technology came along.
Yeah, and so my first question about that approach, which I think does look much neater, I guess I'm curious, like, how do you coach people to? It seems like you would need like your camera and your monitor viewing screen to be separate from each other in order to really do that most effectively. Because if I'm thinking about doing it like looking off screen, it's hard for me to like manage give and take or like continuing to react to my scene partners if I take my eyes off the screen. So that is what would make me nervous to play like that, is to give like that 3/4 or whatever it is, 2/3 focal point, and lose track of what's happening with my partner on the screen. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And so that is I built in a solve for that.
Okay, cool.
Instead of having like right now we're in two boxes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like for the shows that I wanted to produce, that having all the performers in their separate boxes was just continuing the idea that we're separated. So it's like, how do we make the audience feel like these things are happening together? And so all shows at Moment are all done in speaker view, unless it's a specialty show. So the idea is that the camera operator is the term that I've deemed for speaker view. It's whoever talks attracts the camera operator. So in a teleprov show, what is kind of cool is, let's say I'm here and you're on the other side and we're having this conversation. Well, as soon as you start talking, I know that the camera operator has pulled your focus. Mm-hmm. And so then I'm not going to be seen by the camera. And because I'm not being seen by the camera, I can then drop my eyes down and watch you. So I get the information that I need, and then I come back, and then I deliver my line.
Cool. Yeah. Okay. So, again, then it does take like a specific rhythm of give and take, because I suppose that you would be less likely to kind of do quick banter back and forth and more treat it more theatrically, where the lines don't interrupt each other or bounce back and forth too quickly, so that it's a more clean give and take, right?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
So that back and forth that you're talking to, I refer to as the dance.
Okay.
And part of the dance is matching relative head size. Distance between the subject and the camera indicates intimacy. So this is far less intimate if I'm talking to someone and it shows distance. So if I'm like this, then I'd want my scene partner to be relatively that far away from the camera also. Mm-hmm. Right? And then this becomes very intimate. Right?
Yeah.
So as long as like we're listening and we're paying attention, if I'm here and I want to initiate a camera angle shift, then I would wait till you talk. The camera would shift over to you. I would change camera angles to wherever I wanted to be. And then I would talk, and then that would bring the camera back to me. Right. So you can still have all that back and forth.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess I was just thinking that, like, I mean, even to begin with in virtual, people, I think, interrupt each other less, or it's an issue that people kind of like, there's like that slight delay, so I have noticed that with virtual improv that it tends to need to be cleaner either way, because it's really hard to like false start, stop start, but like you said, the dance or the rhythm of it is like, as long as you can get everyone on the same page about like how those exchanges take place, or the shift in focus takes place, then you can kind of like take that to its max speed, I'm sure, once everyone is kind of acclimated to like, like the format and like just building chemistry with each other too. Like, are you doing this with, essentially like virtual house teams, or, is there a set cast for this type of show that you're doing? The one in particular is called Lost Pilots, right?
Yeah. So Lost Pilots is a show that was born out of the work the Moment Players are doing, which is a house team. And then I've got two projects, the Listen Sam's show, and it's real fun. We the whole story is encapsulated inside of a graphic novel. And so I found a interesting way of being able to zoom out of a graphic novel in Adobe After Effects, zooming out. And then when it zooms out, it actually zooms into a green screen and then back into the graphic novel. So it actually looks like our live video is inside of a novel.
Yeah, that's very cool. I like that a lot. I think I know the kind of like transitional effect you're talking about, and I love that stuff. And yeah, it seems like that would be a great way to bop around a virtual long form show.
Yeah, and then another one that I'm doing is Fabricated Dreams, but Honestly, at this point, I feel like we've only scratched the surface. I've been doing a lot of work in the background. I took this camera actually, and I've got a let's see, it's right here. I got a car mount to put the camera on.
Cool.
And I got footage from the back of my car. And then I took an image from the inside of my car. I cut out the windows, and now, we can have driving scenes. And I can actually pull in multiple people into this car. So there's someone in the back seat. There's someone right there.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. So I mean, it's just like so impressive to me that you were able to get to the point of being able to do something like that, even in just like a year of, having to figure out the virtual stuff. It still is like, man, the learning curve on it seems endless. And like I said, the software and the programs are pretty accessible relative to how powerful they are. But still, there's a lot going on, and there's no real map for how to apply it to improv. All of the stuff is like it's meant for cinema, for film, for pre-recorded stuff that's going to be post-edited. So like using these tools for live editing a theatrical show is just so cool and innovative. It's I love it.
We're having a tremendous amount of fun. And I mean, you said it perfectly, like live editing. Once we bring improv into this medium, it's a different game. Mm-hmm. It really is. And we need to be thinking about our improv shows as video productions. How do you communicate to the actors? Because there's a lot of shows that, you'll have the host, okay, are you ready? Okay, they're ready. They're coming up, this, that, and the other. But if you can create a back comms channel, then the audience never has to hear the direction that you're sending the actors to. Okay, so Magda, Julian, you're going to be at the car wash, and 3, 2, 1, you're live. Go. And that's just the way that I'm running my shows, because I actually built a server, so I've got everyone's on OBS, but then I've got a server that has OBS installed too, and that's the system that I'm piping everything into. That's putting all the components together before it gets sent out to stream.
Got it. Yes. And just one more time to clarify what OBS is, so that people can keep up who are not as tech savvy, is that it's basically a control room software to connect all these different hardware devices into one like operating system. So you have your own little broadcast system, but it also comes along with you get creative with like where you set up multiple cameras and what kinds of like physical controllers or keyboards are linked up to OBS. But once you get everything set up and hooked up, it is a lot like having a home film studio for yourself. and then sure. Sky's the limit beyond that, because then once you have it connected to a server and then you're connecting everybody remotely, it's not just the stuff that's in your room, it's the stuff that's in everybody's room that's linked into the server. So it's incredible. The fact that we can do that is incredible.
Oh, you caught up.
I know, like I just I was back for like 30 seconds and then I went away again. But like, and also I should say it's possible, like, because right now you're pixelated for me, but and this is something that I'm not positive is still true about StreamYard, but at a certain point they would say, StreamYard people would say that like just because things are lagging inside the session doesn't always mean that it's what people are seeing in the stream. So
Gotcha.
I'm guessing that my video is lagging, but you probably look crystal clear to people who are streaming, whereas you look a little fuzzy to me.
Gotcha.
These are the things that I'm talking about with the learning curve of like, oh shoot, like what program does what, and like how does it work, a web-based app versus like a local app on your computer, and how do you get like real-time audio and video versus like getting a lag, and once you hook stuff up, then you can like compensate for lag in these mathematical ways between your stream and your recording, and it gets crazy. Like the more you stack on it. So again, just all the kudos in the world for you being able to pull this kind of stuff off, because it is as you might be able to tell, a bit of a challenge for me.
Well, I remember when I first started like figuring everything out, I was doing it all at my home, right? Of course.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was using a laptop, a tablet, my computer, my wife's computer, and just like doing all these crazy connections. Like, okay, I think this will work, but it was super slow. And then that's when I had the thought, oh, of course, because I'm literally running 1, 2, 3, 4 Zoom sessions on one network.
Yeah.
So then that's when I'm like, okay, I need to build a server, so that's not an issue.
Right. Yeah. Right. You run into these walls where you're like, oh shoot, you discover like new tech because you like have to upgrade. You outgrew the fishbowl, so to speak, and you're like, I got to get an aquarium.
Well, necessity is the mother of invention, right?
Yep. Absolutely.
So, and I said a little bit earlier that I feel so stoked because I feel like I've been able to build the whole infrastructure. So like I've got the ability to produce crazy shows. Like I can set, and it's all link based. So literally, I don't know if you want to do
I can throw this back up
quick
on
screen share, but like literally all of these Chrome tabs or shortcuts, that's how you run everything at Moment. Those links. Okay. So I can literally send out a link to a director, and that will send them to this virtual switchboard. And so this is how I would control all my shows. Pull up the host. For here, this is for the Moment players. I can like literally and what I do is I load this onto my laptop, right? So with the touch screen, so then it's just big touch buttons, right? Send them to the doc, send them to the hospital, day or night. And I made all these little graphics. But what's super exciting is, so of course the classes come out of the shows, right? Because it's like, where are you leading people?
Right. Yep.
So here's how you do this type of show. I'm going to teach you how to do this show. But then the next aspect was like, so those are the classes and the shows. But as we know, a lot of improv is community.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, how do you bring back that community feel? And for that, I actually built a virtual theater. One of my friends, Bill Stahl, he came in. I'm like, I want to build this theater. This is the platform. This is what I'm thinking. And he like laid it all out. And then I came back in and added all these special graphics and added these integrations. So like you can walk around this space. You can come over here to the shop. And if you click on the shop, it actually ties into the shop that's on my website.
Yeah, this is incredible because this basically has the feel of like a online game or like RPG, but like very simple game. But you get to have your little avatar. And then you can move around that virtual designed room and actually interact with links and have the virtual space feel like a real space to take you to places. That's incredible.
And so like this is the virtual pin board that shows where people are taking classes from. And this isn't fully like it's developed, but it hasn't been like we haven't had the major launch yet. But the major launch is happening towards the end of September. But I've had people take classes from Sri Lanka, Budapest. But what's really fun about this is I feel like I cracked the code on the virtual theater. So audience members can come into this space, and because it's based on spatial audio, you're going to be able to go to different sections, and the audience can actually hear each other laughing at the shows. Not only that,
that's very cool.
Not only that, the performers can hear the audience laughing without lag.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, and then, man, because I guess I don't want to step on your toes for explaining some of this stuff, because you did show a little preview to this.
You want to pop back? I don't know.
Yeah. So first of all, Sue, thank you. Sue confirms that my video has been lagging and still is.
Oh no! Are we live?
We're live. Yeah.
Hi, internet. I didn't know if this was being recorded for later or what.
That's amazing. Sorry, I should have made that extra clear, but yeah, it's a live stream. And also, Kurt points out that he heard a rumor here that some people open an improv theater in Grand Theft Auto Online, which I would absolutely believe and absolutely love to check out.
Totally. I mean, that's like Farmville on another level.
And Kurt says hello.
Hi, Kurt.
Yeah, that is. It is. It's like Farmville. Like that's what I was kind of thinking. I couldn't think of the word, or the name of that game or platform. But yeah. So you can kind of have like proximity audio, right? You go around this virtual theater space and you go from one section or one corner of the room to another, and depending on what other avatars are there, you can kind of like you get a like a distance effect, so that like as you kind of come closer to people, you hear them, but not people across the virtual room, right?
Yeah. So it lends itself to more real conversations, that feeling. Because like, I could be like, hey James, I want to tell you something, come over and meet me by the video game cabinet. And by the way, all those video game cabinets, they do work.
Oh really?
There's actually like like there's Crossing. So much there's actually a tank game that you can pop in, and because everyone's in the space, you can hear each other talking. Here, I'll just come check out the tour. So here's the bathroom. Mm-hmm. Because you have to have a bathroom.
Go, yeah. Or if you need a breath.
In case you're going to go. Right. So like, and this whole time, like if you had earbuds in, you would actually hear the sounds of a bar that get louder as you get closer to the bar.
So cool.
Here you can figure out, like, take your shows, take classes. You can scan it with your phone for a QR code, or you can click on the link. There's your classic box fire. Why not? There's the green room over here. So this is a working card table. This is a music game that multiple people can plug into and then all make music together.
Very cool. That's awesome. I mean,
you can draw with each other.
Yeah, Kurt's wondering if this is a live platform yet, or if is this like more kind of prototype in beta, or like what are you doing? We have launch date for it?
We're gonna have our launch is going to be sometime towards the end of September. We're actually going to be gearing up to all this because this is going to be the first time that we're bringing everything together. We're going to start hosting activities in here for students that they can come in and they can just play with one another. The idea, hopefully, is that, maybe you're in the moment community, you're working on some stuff at your work or at home, and you're like, I'm on my break. I'm gonna pop in at the theater, because that's what I miss, being able to just go to the theater and see who's there, right? So this way, if you have a link that's on your desktop, just pop in, see who's there.
Yeah, that is such a valuable point to make, is that, I mean, this seems so cool, like, and the notion of like being able to hear live laughter, or if you're doing a show and being able to tap into the audience that way is very, very appealing. But like, I feel like so much of what we have done in the virtual space has been to see if we can pull off live shows, but not really like find ways to keep the community feeling still connected and like a clubhouse feel. And something like this is just so fantastic to think that, like, oh wow, we can really hang out, you know, and there's so many ways to do that online, like Grand Theft Auto Online, or, you know, Facebook or Discord and stuff like that. But to be able to do it in a way that feels like an improv theater and a specific community is just a very, very exciting. I'm wondering, so let's say that it blows up and it gets, you know, every improviser in the world is like, this is awesome, and taking part, and that virtual room fills up. Like, what kind of ability to like expand, like what do you speculate is like the sort of growth of it at this point looking forward?
I mean, that we still have to see like what community adoption looks like, I feel, before we can speculate to that. I do have some plans around like, how do you mix the virtual world and the real world? Like how because it's very, very possible that you're going to have students that some are in San Francisco physically. So someone may take a level 1 and a level 2 in person, but then they may decide, oh, you know, I want to try the on-camera stuff a bit too. So then they slide over and take teleprov. Or I've got people in San Francisco that are taking online classes, you know? So it's very possible that someone from SF and someone from the other side of the country or the world would be in a virtual classroom together. And I think that it'd be really cool to figure out a way how to be like, hey, meet me at the show. And this person just happens to go to the live show.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. But you can still interact, is what you're saying. Like if you're online and in the virtual space. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's man, it is so cool. And I think it's one of those ways that, like, obviously everyone's fingers are crossed that we don't need the virtual space for the reasons that we've needed it for too much longer. But, you know, these kinds of innovations have made it so that we can really still, the fact that you and I are able to have a conversation and do this and, you know, across, you know, coast to coast is really very cool. And, you know, I think everyone's experienced some of the benefits of diving into virtual, in the sense that, like, you get to see people that you don't see very often, that you might only see once a year at a festival, or you get to play with people in a jam or a mixer show that you wouldn't have gotten to play with or meet because they're across the country or in a different country. And I think that, like, those things are still really valuable and appealing, whether or not we need to be in the virtual space per se. And I think that what you are demonstrating in that virtual moment theater is a huge step into making it something that people are going to want to continue doing, because, like, video games there's a community for online video games, right? Like people make friends all across the world and play the same games and develop teams and friendships. And like, it's because it feels like that's the best way to do, like, those certain types of video games. And so if you can kind of like make a theater space feel like a game or feel like it's the right best way to do the virtual community, then like it doesn't feel like a substitute. It feels like its own standalone reality or virtual space.
Well, and that's the thing is like I think that online improv is not a replacement for improv. It is a new thing.
Yeah.
And anyone I've been saying this for a while, anyone doing online improv is going to walk away a stronger improviser because you can't lie to the camera. It's teaching improvisers that less is more. We don't have to be huge as we are on stage. You can have, if you're feeling the feeling and you can get out of the way of trying to show the camera that feeling, the camera will pick it up. So yeah. I think that it can lend itself to a much more authentic style of improv.
Yeah, and just like, there's lots of improvisers or like theater actors who will go, audition for something on camera or seek out an on-camera agent, and a lot of the time the note is you're doing too much, it's too big. And so like to exercise more nuance in that medium and to lean into, camera-based acting, exactly what you're saying is it totally makes sense, and it exercises a different skill set and doesn't try to replace, but instead stands alone as a new application for improv.
Yeah. And with all this tech stuff, I do want to say that, like, yeah, in the beginning, I'm like, oh my God, there's so much that's possible. And there still is. But,
yeah,
I think that it's easy for an outsider to be like, oh, look at all those fancy gimmicks.
But yeah.
When in reality, it's like, for me at least, I wanted to find ways to say, okay, we do this thing in person. What is the most honest representation of that online versus just like, does it work? I don't know. Mm-hmm. How do you make that translation into this space? Yeah.
And really in one sense, it's not so different than like, well, if somebody has a theater, like it's not bells and whistles. It's just it's a space for people to come play, and you make it look as nice as possible, and get nice seating and nice lighting, and try to build the stage and paint an aesthetic and make it welcoming and exciting for people to be there. And that's just how that translates to virtual, is having OBS, like having these things that are capable of housing, so to speak, the performance. And yeah, I think because it's new, it's a novelty, it feels like bells and whistles. I think you're right about that, but it really is just like, well, we have the means and the infrastructure to do it in this medium. It is just like having the physical tools and the physical space and infrastructure to do it at a live theater, just in its own way.
Rent is also a little cheaper.
It's cheaper. Totally. Yeah, absolutely. Well, Marcus, we should come to a close here, but it's been fantastic talking to you about this stuff, and just the most sweetly ironic day to be having these kind of tech problems on my end. So I appreciate you being patient with that. I'm sure you're used to working your just power and threat. So thank you, and welcome to the board of the Improv Network. Really looking forward to working with you, and just getting to know more about what you do, and having the community also learn more about you, and see, benefit from having you on the team.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to get down and make some things happen.
Yeah, awesome. So we dropped a link to Moment Improv Theater in the
thank you.
description, in the show notes. And friendly reminder to our audience that you can, of course, catch us on the Improv Network Facebook page or the Improv FAQ YouTube channel with these live streams. You can also hear us as a podcast, anywhere podcasts are found, as the Improv Network podcast, probably put on by Gabber Media. Okay, everyone. Thanks so much. Great talking to you, Marcus. We'll look forward to catching you next time on the Improv Network podcast.
Bye.
Bye.